Well, the last thing I'd like to do with this seat before we move on to something else is just maybe come down here and grab one of these edges right here and maybe pull it down so we round out this area down here. And then I might try, it's got this seam all the way around, but I might at least try just to add an edge loop here and see if I can pull it down just to kind of sharpen that edge up just a little bit. Because the closer you get these edges together, the sharper the corner will be between the two edges when you're using the subdivision surface modifier. So let's just see how that looks. Yeah, see, that's not bad. I think that'll work pretty well. And maybe I will take these edges here and maybe pull them up just a little bit like this. So once again, just keep tumbling around, taking a look at things. And as we add more objects to the scene, we're going to see things in a new way and then be able to go back and do some adjustments then as well. All right, well, continuing with adding or blocking in the larger pieces on the motorcycle, I think maybe the next thing let's do is add some wheels. At least block them in, get them in place so we can see how they look. So let's change our reference images over here. I'm going to go to Image Open, and maybe I'll grab this one here. Let's do that. So that gives us a pretty good view of one of the tires. And then over here, maybe let's just grab this one here. So we kind of have two different views of it. And even though the tires are kind of like a donut or a torus, and Blender does have a primitive object, torus, here, I think instead I'm going to use a cylinder because I feel like I can control the shape a little bit better by extruding and creating the shape more from scratch. So let's go ahead and try a cylinder here. So I'll select that, and of course it's very big here. I'll open up this tools panel, and we currently have the number of vertices for this cylinder at 32. I think I'm going to leave that as is. I'll shrink it down a bit by typing in 0.1 meters here and 0.2 meters here. And then also I want to remove the cap fill. Currently there's a cap on the top and the bottom of the cylinder, and I'm just going to pull this down and choose nothing. So now I can hit the period key to zoom into it and to frame it up. So we tumble around this point in the scene. And I'm going to need to turn this. Let's rotate it on the y-axis. So I'll press RY90 to turn it 90 degrees and press enter. And if we hit the 3 key, it kind of disappears. We can still see the center there, but because it's just a very thin object, it kind of disappears. Now, one thing we can do to see it is we can tab into edit mode, and then we can see it there when it's selected. However, if we move it here in edit mode, we kind of have a similar issue that we had with the frame. We move the mesh away from the center point, and I kind of want that center point to be able to put it here in the center of the tire. And you can see that if I hit the G key and move it, you can see the origin is still here in the center. So what I'm going to do is tab back into object mode and just kind of trust it's there and hit the G key and move, and I can see that center, and I'll just place the center where I want it to be. Now that we're kind of close to where we want it here, I'm going to tab into edit mode. And now I can scale it up here. I'll hit the S key and scale it up. And now we'll try and get it the proper size for this tire. So, and once again, we're going to struggle with the perspective of the photograph here. Things aren't exactly being seen from the side. This tire isn't going to be exactly round, and also it isn't going to be round just because of the weight sitting on it and gravity pulling on it, but we're going to get it as close to the size that we see here as we can. So maybe something like that. Now if we tumble around, you can see it's a little bit too wide, so I'm going to press S and X and scale in like this. Now as I extrude this out, I'm going to want it mirrored on the other side, so it will do the same thing over there. So let's put an edge straight down the center, Control R, and then hit Enter 2 times to ensure it's exactly in the center. And then I'll press the 3 key to go to face mode, Alt-click between 2 of the faces to select a face loop, and then let's hit Delete and delete faces. Now we can come over to our modifiers panel and click Add Modifier and choose Mirror. Now, once again, we're having a problem here because we're supposed to be mirroring in the x-axis, but it isn't coming across that x-axis, which means if we tab into object mode and hit the N key, sure enough, there's rotation here in these fields, which means we're going to have a problem trying to mirror it over. So let's clear the rotation, Control A, apply the rotation, and there we go. And let's also be sure and turn on clipping. And if we tab into edit mode, we can see we do not have the cage on this side, so let's turn it on here. Now we're ready to go. So what I'm going to do is alt-click this edge here to select that entire edge loop, and let's begin fairly far in like this. And what we're going to want to do is extrude and kind of curve it down around and into the wheel frame. And it's kind of hard to do that with just one viewport. So Blender has what's called the quad view, and you can access this with Control-Alt-Q. And now we can see 4 different views. I'm going to hit the N key to close the sidebar, and I'll click here to close that settings panel. And now you can tumble around here. Here's the perspective view. And then we have a front view, a top view, and a side view here. I think I'll also hit the Z key and go to wireframe. And then let's give this a try. I will hit the E key, EX, and pull out just a bit. And then I'm going to scale in. I'll just hit the S key and scale in just a little tiny bit. And then I think I may have brought it out too far. I'm going to bring it in just a little bit like that. And then let's try that again. EX, pull out just a smidge. Then we're going to scale in. And I think I'll go back to solid view now. Z and solid. And then let's try this again. EX, but just a smidge. And I'm going to scale it in quite a bit now like this. And then let's just hit E and S and scale in like this. Let's do that again. ES, scale in to the rim. And then I'm going to pull in just a little bit, kind of like that, just a smidge. All right, let's tab into object mode and see how we're doing. All right, I think that's pretty good. I'm going to press Control-Alt-Q to come out of that. And there's a couple things I feel like the front part is a little bit too flat. You see how it kind of curves from the beginning here. So maybe I'll take this edge, I'll alt-click it, and let's scale it in just a bit. The S key. And maybe we can take this and scale it out just a smidge. S, pull that out just a little bit, just the tiniest amount, just so we get that curve. All right, so I think that's a good beginning. Let's select it and right-click it and choose Shade Smooth, smooth that. Now, is it thick enough? It feels like it may not be wide enough. Let me see. Let's go to that front view, go to wireframe, and what do we think here? Well, it's not bad, but I think I will just scale out in the X just a little bit like this. Let's see how that works. All right, I think we're doing pretty well. Let's just duplicate this and use this for the back tire as well. But before I do, let me I think I want to take this edge right here and pull this out just a little bit. I feel like it needs to kind of bulge out a little bit more. I'm going to pull these out just a little bit. Yeah, so we just get a little bit more of a rounded feel out here. And once again, we're going to continue to adjust this as we go. But for now, I think this is pretty good. Let's go to the 3 key to the side view. And let's press Shift D and Y and just move this straight back here. Kind of get it in place, centered along here. There we go. All right. So there we go. Now we've got our tires blocked in. We're beginning to get a sense, I think, of the size and proportions of it. So in the next video, what let's do is use our tires to kind of begin getting the shape and size of the fenders as well.